have a look.
Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Tokimaru and I am here to have a look at Spindle. This is a 2D pixel art adventure game developed by German development studio Wobble Ghost. From what I can find, this is their first game as an independent studio, and it was actually kickstarted. It was fully funded in 2021 and released October of this year. I know, I'm a few months late. I generally try to keep these have a look at videos relatively close to the release date. However, I did have to push this one up a little bit. This is a very traditional 2D Zelda inspired game. Now, I know there are kind of a lot of those running around. A lot of people have been yearning for the classic 2D Zeldas, Link's Awakening, Link Between Worlds, Oracle of Ages and Seasons, etc., etc., as Nintendo hasn't really been doing that style of Zelda game in quite a bit, with the exception of their recent re-release of Link's Awakening. I know that Echoes of Wisdom came out, however, it was a little bit divisive as it wasn't in the traditional design of older 2D Zelda. It was actually more similar to sort of a top-down Tears of the Kingdom type game, which ended up making it very, very divisive. I quite enjoyed it, but I know that's not exactly what people were looking for in terms of 2D Zelda. So you get a lot of these indie companies wanting to make their own 2D Zelda-like game, and this is sort of one of them. However, I will say this game very much does try to be its own thing, and not just, we wanted a 2D Zelda, so we made a new Zelda with a fake name and everything. This has its own thing going on, and I think it does a very good job differentiating itself from Zelda while also wearing its inspiration on its sleeve, and we'll get into that in a moment. But for now, let's start with the options menu. The controls is playable with both mouse and keyboard as well as controller, and something I appreciate about this, so a problem that I have with a couple of options menu in terms of key rebindings is it often shows you either one or the other. It either shows you the keyboard controls or it shows you the controller controls, and then you have to switch which controller you're using for it to actually show you the other controls. However, they actually let you look at the other controls regardless of what you have connected at that given moment, which I do quite appreciate. Controls are all rebindable, of course, which is very nice. Jumping into graphics, like I said, this is a 2D pixel art game, so we're not going to have anything that graphically intensive. Full screen on or off, we have screen resolution. Windowed mode, we have full screen, borderless, and windowed. Anti-aliasing was something I was actually extremely surprised to see. Now, like I said, 2D pixel art game, right? And the resolution of the pixel art in this game is pretty low. I will say it's very simplistic. I think it's a very good art style, but it's not the type of thing that you would normally expect to have anti-aliasing in it. And there are a few, very, very few, there are very few non-pixel art graphical elements in this game. For example, this menu is definitely non-pixel art, and you'll see in a second, it'll be very hard to see on this menu. However, you might be able to see it if you look very closely. The selection bubble as well as speech bubbles in game are not pixel art, and that is what the anti-aliasing affects and nothing else, because the pixel art stays as its own thing. If we look through this, you may notice the selection bubble gets a little bit less jagged every time I go through these. Now, I did actually have one problem with this. When I go to the high option, I can't tell if I'm seeing something wrong or if this is an actual bug with the game, but when I scroll through off, low, and medium, it seems to work fine. But when I go to high, it appears to be very similar to low. I don't know if you can see it on the screen, but the low option for anti-aliasing looks very similar to the high option. I don't know if that's, again, I don't know if that's a bug or if I'm seeing it wrong, but that is something that I did notice, so I recommend keeping it at medium. We've reduced darkness, which is good because there are a few post-processing lighting effects in this game, so this is good. I didn't notice any problems, but it's good for accessibility. And then we have the screen refresh rate. Now, personally, I would prefer if there were VSync options, as well as options to set specific frame rates at 30, 60, 90, 120, and above. However, I will say this is probably my least favorite way they could have gone about this. Setting it to 30 or having it unlimited isn't particularly great, especially because I think 30 is the bare minimum. In terms of how games should run, 30 is the bare minimum. It should be running at least 60, preferably higher, but the bare minimum that I'm willing to accept for a game is 30 FPS. Now, normally this wouldn't actually be that much of a problem because I can understand less games where you don't need the frame perfect reactions don't necessarily need extremely high frame rates. Like, I think for a lot of games, I think 60 is perfectly serviceable. I would prefer it at 90, but 30 and 60 can be okay. I think in this game, I don't know what it is. It's something about the way the game is animated or the way it looks, but when I switch it to 30, something about it hurts my eyes. Like, generally, I'm okay with 30 at times. However, the way it looks in this game tends to hurt my eyes personally. You may have a different experience, so you might be okay with that. But again, I would prefer if we could set specific frame rates or rather than limited to 30 or have it unlimited. Now, there is something about the game's performance that I noticed. You'll see when we get into the game. But it tends to occasionally freeze when you're running very fast through a large area, and I think that decreasing the frame rate to 30 fixes that. But again, it hurts my eyes, so I can't bear to have it on. Like, honestly, it looks so bad for me. In terms of accessibility options, we have screen shake on or off, invulnerability on or off. So if you're more interested in this game for the story, you can turn that on. Easy fishing. So this game does have a fishing mini game in it. I'll explain more about why I was gonna say I don't like this option, but thinking about it, I realize it's good for accessibility, but I have a little bit to say about the fishing minigame. And we have visible enemy health bars, which is very nice. We have audio sliders. Again, I would prefer if these were actual sliders, just for the granularity of it, as well as having a general audio option. And we have dialogue sounds here. Language, we have several languages. Here's our full list, which isn't too shabby. And that's about it for that. So let's jump into the game. This game is about 8 to 10-ish hours long, depending on whether or not you're going for completion. I am about 4 hours into the game. I have 3 out of 5 of the main MacGuffins, so I believe I'm a little bit less than halfway through the game. Now, here is what the game looks like. Like I said, it is a 2D pixel art game, very simplistic art style, very low resolution pixel art. So we have these big chunky pixels, and the animation for things is actually quite nice. I think despite the fact that they have pixels this big and chunky, they do a really good job with some of the finer details and things. I think in some games, in some games, I have a problem with when in a pixel art game, you can animate according to the pixels. So for example, if you look at my character sprite, it has sort of this pixel perfect animation where they draw each frame individually and adjust the pixel art accordingly. And additionally, you can animate like this, where you sort of motion tween the objects, not according to the pixel grid. I I have mixed feelings about it. It depends on the game. I feel like it actually looks quite good in this game. They don't do it that much. It depends on what they're animating. But for example, we have the tree sway here. I think it's very serviceable for these grass objects. And when they pixel animate properly, it does look really, really good. I just want to quickly show off the 30 FPS gameplay, just because, like I said, personally, I think this hurts my eyes. I don't know what it is about this game specifically, but it's painful to look at. You might have a different experience, but I just wanted to show this off for a second. Yeah, something about it. It's partly like really sluggish, partly it feels really jagged and jumpy. So there's something about it. I don't know what it is. Even though I generally prefer at least 60 FPS and above, whoops. I'm generally okay with looking at games that run in 30 FPS. But for some reason, this game, not so much. Now, like I said, this is a Zelda-like. So we are playing as Death. We are Death, and our job is to collect souls and put them on our Spindle, which I can't hover over on this screen, it appears. But our job is to collect souls and put them onto our Spindle. The story of this game is that some mysterious force is causing souls to become monsters separate from their body, and we have to figure out what's going on while also harvesting souls and taking them. Whoops, don't want to show that off yet. Let me show you where we are going. We are bringing them to the afterlife. Oh yes, we have an energy sight. That is our main weapon. We have a nice energy sight that we swing around. The sound effects in this game, I think the sound design in this game is quite excellent. Sound design is very, very, very good. I adore the art style of this game. Sound design, music, which we'll see in a moment. There are some parts where it's very reminiscent of Zelda. There are some parts where it's very calm and atmospheric. They do a good job at sort of replicating the feel of some Zelda songs while also keeping it its own thing. Now here I'm going to deposit my soul that I have on my Spindle, name of the game by the way, into this pool for it to be delivered to the afterlife. You don't have any souls to offer. And that's about it. That's the main through line of the game, is we're going around, we are fighting bosses, we are harvesting souls, and then we are bringing them back here. Now, the overall gameplay of this game, like I said, very similar to 2D Zelda. Very similar to classic 2D Zelda. Just let me leave this building. Very similar to classic 2D Zelda. And so we have a map. This is the entire world. As you can see, there are a couple parts that are covered up, but what I really like about this map, this is something that I also liked in Axel's Quest, which was another game I played quite recently, which had a map that shows you very specifically it's very detailed. Like, it shows you every path, where every tree is, where every single cave is. I know a lot of maps tend to be pretty general. I think this game does a really good job at having the finer details very apparent in the map. One criticism that I do have of this is that I wish you could zoom in, because like I said, there are a few fine details on the routes in this map. However, it can be a little bit hard to find certain things because there's no zoom in button. I wish there was a zoom in button. I would also prefer if there was something like map markers, because something about this game is that in regards to things like side quests and extras and collectibles, this game has quite a few off the beaten path collectibles and side quests. There's a lot of adventuring you can do. You're not strictly confined to doing the main quest. However, I often forget, if I haven't been playing for a day or two, where certain things go, like for instance, I remember that I spoke to an NPC that I forget what it was specifically. I think they wanted a bird or something. And I found this little chick and I don't remember where that person is. I don't remember where that person is. I wish that I could have placed a map marker where that was. And again, there are also other places where if you're going through the game and you notice something and you're like, oh, I can't get that yet, I'll have to come back here later. I would love to be able to put a map marker down being like, hey, this is a place that you could go, because otherwise you run into the problem where this is a problem that I actually had playing some of the earlier Zelda games, is where I would notice something early on that I want to come back to, but I would keep forgetting where certain things were in certain parts of the game once I got the thing later. So it would simply be nice to have a reminder. I know they don't want to clutter this game up with a whole bunch of reminders and quest markers and things. I would appreciate very simple pins. Just a couple pins would be nice, if I do say so myself. Now, what else was I going to explain here? Oh, yes. Okay, so this game, like I said, it does a few things very similar to Zelda, but it also does a few things to differentiate itself. Number one, we have bottles. Bottles can carry potions and things. There are a few different potions in this game. Currently, I only have one bottle. I don't know what the third thing is, but you may notice this game doesn't actually have that many items. Normally in a 2D Zelda game, a classic 2D Zelda game, you have quite a few different items that allow you to sort of create your own fighting style. Is maybe how I would describe it. You would create your own play style. A lot of different enemies would be vulnerable to different things. Maybe you need the hammer for certain things. Maybe you need bombs. There's very, very few items in this game that you can use in combat and for puzzles and things. So we have this. This is a book of fish that you can catch. Like you saw, there's a fishing mini game in this game. These are just a collectible. I don't know what they unlock, but I enjoy fishing sometimes. You have a fishing rod so you can actually fish. This is a pig saddle. This gives us the ability to move quickly. It's very similar to Pegasus boots, where if you knock into something, then you stop running. And then there's a certificate that lets us do a new combat move, which I actually forgot about. Yeah, okay. But other than that, as you go through the game and you complete these sort of dungeons, you actually gain back your Reaper abilities. We have number one, the ability to swing our scythe. That is our basic ability. We have number two, the power of petrification, which I will show off in a little bit. It allows us to basically absorb the essence of living things and turn them into stone. Obviously, you can't use it on regular NPCs because that would be evil and mean and rude, and you can't do that. But we can do it to monsters and we can do it to various other things. Unfortunately, we can't do it to this. I believe we can do it to these grass things. But for example, we can do that, and that's usable in a lot of different and interesting ways. So you can see this is made of stone. It's a thing that we can push around and leave on buttons and things. There are a few really cool puzzles that they use that for. And there's one particular place that I want to show off. And our third ability is the power of friendship. This allows us to switch between characters, which is actually really cool and is something that I wasn't expecting. So we can also play as the pig. We can charge up and ram into things. This lets us destroy certain objects, and I believe also stun enemies. And we also have a Kirby suction ability, which is usable only in very specific circumstances where we can find a thing to actually suck. Let me see if I can suck this. Yeah, you can only suck very specific things. But in addition to that, it turns your character into stone, and you can push them around like a block. So you get really cool cool and unique abilities that you wouldn't necessarily expect that have a lot of unique applications. I would also like to show you an application right now. So this game, like I said, this game is pretty open world. There's a lot of cool exploring you can do. There are a lot of alternate paths that are open to you as soon as you get out of the basic tutorial area of the game. There are going to be some places where there are paths that you can't cross and you might want to come back later when you have certain abilities, like this bridge, which is broken right now. And then I wanted to show you something. A really cool application of this turn things to stone ability. Let me see if I can remember where this is specifically. Here it is. Okay. We're going to ignore all these monsters around us. So this area is an area that you can't get. You see it pretty early in the game. Oh, I just realized I don't remember if I went up here. This is an area that you see pretty early in the game. You want to cross over here into that, which is really cool, but you can't because, oh yeah, here's an annoying detail about this game, is that you can't run off of ledges. I wish you could run off of ledges because there are a lot of points where I want to get down from a ledge, but it doesn't let you run off of ledges. So you end up having to go all the way around to get to where you're trying to go at the moment. But here's what I wanted to show off. So this is just grass. If you can't walk on top of the grass. So you see this early game and you're like, well, I guess I'm gonna have to figure out a new way to get there later. Maybe I'll get a hook shot or something, or maybe I'll get a little hop. Turns out, no, this is a really cool application for this turn things to stone mechanic. Grass is a living thing. And if you turn grass into stone, that means you can walk on top of it, which is really cool and is something, it's like a type of ability that you wouldn't necessarily expect to get. So it makes it really cool. I've already been here, so I'm not going to bother with this. I just realized. Also, you can, if you want to return something to normal, because that ends up being part of a few puzzles where you have to turn things to stone and turn them back to normal later. You can do that. Let me just check this. This is also another application for that ability. There are certain roadblocks in the path that are blocked by vines. Ooh, I think I know what this is. That you can't get. Okay, so this is one of many collectibles in the game. Like I said, ooh, you hear that little jingle? Very, very, very Zelda. It's very much a Zelda type jingle. So like I said, this game wears its inspiration on its sleeve, but I think it does enough different that it ends up being really interesting. So this is one of our two, or I guess technically three because we're counting fishing. One of our three main collectibles. I still haven't found a use for the salamander scales, but occasionally throughout the game, you'll find salamanders in the grass, which is why it's a really good incentive to cut grass as much as possible. You don't get, I believe you don't actually get any money in this game. Unlike Zelda, you don't get any rupees from cutting the grass, so having these collectible salamander scales, occasionally, very, very occasionally, they're not in every patch of grass, but they occasionally pop up. So you wanna, it's a very good incentive to make you cut the grass wherever you go, but they are in very innocuous places. And then our other collectible is the death coin. This is sort of like our piece of heart in this game. Once you collect 4 death coins, you can find these statues out in the world and it gives you a full heart. Now that we've gone through all of the main items and things, let's show off a little bit of the combat. So you may have noticed, we do have a dodge roll. We are in an era of indie games that love putting dodge rolls in the combat. Unfortunately, this actually isn't a dodge roll unless I'm doing something wrong. Let me try to show it off here. But you don't actually get any invincibility frames from this dodge. So it's a roll. It's a roll that's meant to get you out of the way. I have a few problems with that. It feels a little bit clunky. I know the idea is they don't just want to give you a free don't hit me button, but what it ends up feeling a little clunky the way they've implemented it, because when you're slashing your sword a bunch, because a lot of things have, they're pretty chunky in terms of health. So what ends up happening is you're swinging your scythe a few times and you're trying to preemptively hit the dodge button when you're in the middle of swinging your scythe. You have to wait for the animation to play out to be able to finish dodging. And sometimes it just ends up mismatching timing with when you actually want to dodge and you get hit anyway because there aren't any invincibility frames. I understand why they might not want to give you that, but I think a few frames of invincibility would be nice. That way it would be an incentive to understand the specific timing of how the dodge roll works and be an interesting skill check. Additionally, we have the ability to heal. It's very similar to how Hollow Knight works, where we're collecting energy. I did that wrong. I forgot. This is my Link spin ability. This actually takes some of our charge. But what I wanted to do is not that. Okay, here's a problem I have. Minor gripe I have with this game. So because it's not like a traditional Zelda game where you have a big inventory full of items that you get to equip to a specific slot, every ability you have is mapped to a very specific input. For example, if I press X, that's a scythe swing. If I hold X, that's a spin attack. If I press B, that switches between me and the pig. And if I hold B, that's my turn to stone ability. If I double tap Y when I'm next to the pig, that puts me on the pig. And if I hold Y, that's my heal. Now, in regards to the heal specifically, unlike Hollow Knight, you can't just heal one health at a time for 1 bar of energy. You have to spend the whole bar of energy and heal for as much energy as you have. So if you're only missing 1 heart and you're like, wow, I'd love to heal, but you have a full bar of energy, you have to expend the full bar of energy to actually get that. Let's show you a little bit of just me going through the combat. Nice. I think the combat in this game is very satisfying. However, I will say, for the most part, a majority... Actually, let me show you one creature that I think is an interesting fight. I think that a majority of the fights in this game are actually quite easy. Even the boss battles. Even in the boss battles, I don't think I've encountered a boss battle where I've actually lost yet. I think most of the combat in this game is really easy. Even these guys that get invincibility when they do that aren't too hard to defeat. Where was this? I think this was here. This was a fun puzzle. So sometimes when you complete a puzzle, it'll actually just leave the thing there for you, which is nice. This enemy, I actually think, is probably the most difficult enemy in the game. Ooh. Because of this tongue attack, it's very easy to accidentally get hit by that. That's my first time beating that with only taking 2 damage. I think that's probably the most difficult enemy in the whole game, including every boss so far. I know I'm still in the first half of the game, but like I said, I feel like so far, the overall combat in this game, while satisfying, is pretty easy, but I can understand why they might want it to be easy, because I think the game is just more about the adventure rather than the combat, which could also be... That could also be a reason they didn't give you a invincibility frames on your dodge roll, because they don't want to incentivize sort of going super hardcore on the combat. Now, where was I going? Okay. Let me try to remember where I was. So currently, I've gotten 3 things. Right now, I need to go to the swamp, which I believe is down... Not down here. Whoop. Let me try to find this. Pig, where are you? Oh, God. I hate tight spaces. See ya. God damn it. I keep forgetting that these grass blocks actually have a hitbox on them. Oh, wait. Oh, wait. Now I remember. I remember where that goes. Never mind. I've been here. Where was this swamp? There's one specific cave that goes to the swamp that I need to find. That I couldn't really do earlier. That sucks. Let me try to get here. Okay, so this is actually where I need to go. While I'm going through here, let me talk about this story. So, overall, I'm actually quite intrigued by the story. It's very simple, don't get me wrong. There isn't actually that much to the story. However... Oh, how do I do this? Definitely this, right? There isn't actually that much to the story. It's pretty... Okay. Does this count? I don't know if this counts. I don't know if this counts as a platform. This is where I need to go next. I might need to go around and try and find an ability or something, because I think I'm getting to a point where I might need some sort of like a hop ability. So overall, god damn it. The story is pretty simple. You're playing as a Reaper. Something's gone wrong. You have to try and find out what's happening with the souls. Occasionally, you get these sort of visions. So where do I need to go now? I'm actually not sure. I'll just explore around a little bit. Occasionally, you get these sort of visions and you pass out. At the very beginning of the game, we start with a cutscene of two people fishing. And then we wake up as the Grim Reaper. And there's no explanation. We just kind of to assume we have some sort of past that we don't remember. And we don't have any of our Reaper powers, which is why we're partly on a quest to get all our Reaper powers back. Here's a really cool detail about this game. In all the reflections, you can see your past self instead of your Reaper self, which is really cool. There's another part of the game where you look into a mirror and it says the funny Undertale quote for you. Actually, these guys are pretty tough. I was just saying before how the frog was probably the hardest enemy in the game. These guys are actually surprisingly tough. Nice. I don't think this is where I had to go. God damn it. This is kind of why I wish you had invincibility frames on your dodge roll. It feels like, some things are just like really annoying to wait for the opportunity to hit. Because obviously these guys walk away while trying to throw a thing at you. God damn it. Yeah, you can't fall off edges except for when they want you to be able to fall into the water. Very good job. Thank you, game. But other than that, as you go through the game and you go to these little towns and things, you get little stories. Like each area sort of has its own. Oh, this might actually be. Was this the guy? I keep forgetting. Ah, I need to find where this baby chick goes. Did you want a chick? No. Okay, we're good. I just need to find where I'm actually going because it's been about a week since I last played this game. We just talked to some of these NPCs. But each area of the game sort of has its own little micro story, which it's also something that happens in Zelda. So we had like a little bit here at the beginning. We went to the mountain area. There was a cool little story there. The town has a few small stories in it, but it's mostly a hub town that we are constantly going back to every time we complete a mission. There was this cool story that we had with a thieves' den, and the boss of that one was actually really interesting and sort of broke the pattern of how the bosses work. I'm never gonna find this person that actually wants this chick. I really want to I really want to move on. Cute. I really want to move on in the story because I want to show you things like the temples and stuff and the puzzles that they have. This wall, for instance, looks so bare. Picture. Okay, so this is a side quest that I don't have a thing for. And like I said, I wish I had a pin to just drop here and be like, hey, I should, whoops. Hey, I should come back to this house specifically later. So I know as soon as I get that picture, I'm definitely gonna forget where I have to go with that. Whoops. I think I clicked through. But yeah, this was a town near the beginning. I've been here a few times. I've been back a couple times too. So there shouldn't really be much that I missed. Oh yeah, this is actually where I got the bird from. This is where I got the bird from, so it's definitely not in this village. I think it's probably in the other village. Oh, actually, this is a good chance to show you. So like I said, there are actually a lot of things to discover. I think this game does a really good job at directing you through the main story, but also allowing you the opportunity to explore a lot of different places and discover things on your own. Like, I was simply exploring here and in other places, and I ended up finding this place by myself without any instruction. And I know that's like, well, yeah, that's to be expected. You're playing an adventure game. Obviously, you don't need instruction. But this is, I accidentally discovered this fast travel system, which is really cool. Because before this, I went to the mountain area, and when I was exploring this place, I encountered this room, and I found this, and before this thing here, where the cart goes, was completely boarded up. And I wasn't sure what it was, but when I went back to previous areas and I explored around, I ended up realizing it was a fast travel system. So that was a really cool discoverable moment. This is also really cool because it actually teases a future area that I haven't been to yet. This is something that classic Zelda games do all the time, is where they tease you on something. They just sort of tease you on something that you'll get eventually, but you can't do it right now. I just need to find this one thing that I'm looking for. And it's going to annoy me so much. How do I actually do my next thing? Again, I really wish there was like a pin or something. I don't know if I necessarily need a hint system. Sir? You must travel to the swamplands. Good, very helpful. Pig? Oh yeah, actually I did forget. We do kind of have a hint system. The pig tells you where you need to go next. Well, that's not helpful. I know where I need to go directionally. This is actually a really bad example of the gameplay just because I'm currently at a point where I'm not actually doing any of the cool, exciting, fun things and just sort of walking around. There we go. Not doing any of the cool, exciting things and just sort of walking around. Did this guy have anything? So this actually was pretty newly opened up for me. Oh, this is the guy that wants the picture. Oh, needs a beautiful pink. Have you ever come across a pink flower? So this is another like big side quest that I have to do. Okay, so that might be in the swamplands or something. I really need to find this. So like I said, there's actually a lot of side quests here. Can I... Sir? Can I use my pig ability? Good, very helpful. Very helpful and cool. Does this do anything? I don't think this does. I think when I push my main guy into the water, that happens. Yeah. Oh, hello. Ooh. This is actually something I didn't realize was a thing. Ooh, new ability just dropped. That's actually really cool. I'm guessing this doesn't work. Okay, so I think I realized what I have to do with this puzzle. So this is what I mean when I say the way they do the abilities in this game leads to a lot of really cool and interesting puzzles. They implement puzzles in a really cool way that you wouldn't necessarily expect. So we have to turn this into stone. We have to turn it back. We have to turn into a pig. And then we have to go. We have to not mess that up. Nice. And then we push this. Oh, it's so good. It made me feel like a genius realizing the solution to that. Very good. I'm hoping I can find a little bit more combat. We're not gonna worry about that right now. Not gonna worry about this, actually. I guess we should worry about this. Ooh. This is another thing that you can do with the pig. He can go into pig holes. So you get, I unlocked this ability relatively recently. You actually get a few sections where you get to be good. Where you get to play as just the pig, and it's really cool because the pig doesn't have a sword. His only ability is to suck things up. Excellent. His only ability is to suck things up, so you don't really have a... I'm just trying to see if there are any secrets. You don't really have a proper defense mechanism for the pig. Oh. Interesting. Why would we need that? I don't know why you would need that. Oh well, we'll deal with that later. Let me try and get out of here. So it leads to a couple of cool situations where you're sort of left in a very helpless, you're left in a helpless state. Whoops. Until you get your main guy back. For example, this. Nice. But yeah, there are a lot of really cool puzzles. Ooh, this is a good one. There's some really good puzzles. I think the combat is really easy. I think it's not necessarily the main meat of the game. I think the main meat of the game is the... Nice. The story elements, which as of right now... So I can't actually go down there. As of right now, the story elements are a little bit vague. However, it does seem like they're ramping them up as we get halfway through the game here. Nice. Can I actually cut this? Oh no, it's a barrel. Excellent. But yeah, this is really cool because you can actually be off screen with your main guy when you switch back and forth between the pig. But yeah, I think the main parts of the game are the story elements, which are actually ramping up and getting more interesting as we get deeper into the game. The puzzles, the dungeons, and the overworld exploration, which I think they do very, very nicely. And like I said, there's also this fishing minigame component. These are like another collectible. I think I've already gotten this fish, but... Actually, I just remembered, I did want to show you the fishing. So this is what the fishing is. When the fish gets the thing, you just mash the button. There's no punishment really for taking too long. So I can just keep mashing this forever and not letting it go. Obviously, if you do nothing, it escapes. But you can basically just mash forever. It just comes down to how fast you mash. Let me go one more time. It just comes down to how fast you mash. And there isn't really a punishment for taking too long. So I don't think even though you do a lot of fishing in this game for this, oh, I don't actually have this, I think. Even though there's a lot of fishing you do in this game, just for the collectible purposes, I don't think the fishing minigame is very interesting. It's not particularly skill intensive, which is why I initially was thinking that the option to make the fishing easier was meaningless and purposeless. Ooh, chapter 6, a deep hole. I wonder, oh, at least I got to show off the puzzles. We didn't really get to see that much new combat, but we did get to see the puzzles, which was nice. And again, the art in this game is really good. I think they do a fantastic job differentiating the different areas. I love the art style. Music, fantastic. I'll let you listen to the music for a second. Yeah, very nice. Very spooky and very swampy. So yeah, I think, woo, oh, and we have like just cute little animations. There's so much love put into this game. There's so much polish, so many small details that they didn't really need to put in. Like this frog just occasionally, I mean, I guess it just dies. It occasionally eats flies, and that's, so far, that doesn't seem to actually have a purpose, because this frog isn't an enemy that we can't kill. It doesn't do anything. It just sits in the background, sometimes eating flies and sometimes killing himself. But yeah, I think this game, oh, hello. But yeah, again, very, very easy combat, but I'm not quite sure that's the main point of the game. But yeah, I think this game is very excellent if you're looking for a traditional 2D Zelda-like, but it does a lot to stand on its own and differentiate itself from Zelda while still wearing its inspiration on its sleeve. Very, very good. Excellent job. My name has been Tokimaru. Thank you so much for watching. I will see you all next time.